Hi folks, Dr. Muddassir Ahmed here with one more episode of the Supply Chain Show. So today I have something very special and very unique. So the question is, can you turn your obsolete inventory, which is sitting in your warehouse for like years and years, basically under dust of 3 inches, which you hope one day you can sell it. And I've seen it many times, people hoping that we might sell it one day, we might, sell it at reduced price or do something, package deal, after sales, whatever. But the fact is you do not sell it. So I've seen that very many times being a supply chain manager, material manager, as well, and with some of the people I consult and advise as well. So now during the thanks to the world of internet and LinkedIn, I come across to a very interesting idea where an individual and a company, they are essentially taking your excess and obsolete inventory and turning into something very meaningful. What I mean by meaningful is into a charitable cause, which is education, which is right up my street, and also helping these sustainability to the world, right? So I'll introduce you to Claudia Freed. Hi, Claudia. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Dr. Muddassir. Thank you very much for having me.
I would like to quickly introduce yourself, please, to the folks.
Very well. So I'm Claudia Freed, and I am the CEO and president of EALgreen. I am originally from Argentina, and I have been involved around the issue of education my entire life. I have lots of stories to share with you, but today we're really going to talk about this unique business model that I am really in a unique position to share with, because I've been involved from the very beginning.
And you are the CEO right now, correct?
Yes, but more importantly, besides now being the CEO, I was the very first student that received a scholarship that was created by this exchange of excess obsolete materials converted into a scholarship.
Excellent. So now this is probably the great time if you can share what EALgreen does, what is a business model, how you turn the inventory into something gold.
Yeah, so that's a great segue to talk about, what is it that makes us so unique? In 1982, a couple of entrepreneurs saw an opportunity to use supply chain as the practice of reallocating resources. So based on principles of logistics and supply chain inventory management, and the beginnings of the recognition that excess inventory, and particularly waste, will become one day something that businesses had to take a closer look at, they came with this idea that you could have excess materials and in one side of the economy, whereas another side of the economy was looking exactly for that product. And not in a traditional sales, but in a resource reallocation. And now when we think about the world that we live in today with the circular economy, we know that there are at least 10 activities, all of whom begin with the letter R, from recycle to reduce, to remanufacture, to re-engineer, even to reject, which is reduction of material that is going to waste. And Mr. Michelson and Mr. Roscom came up with this idea of approaching businesses who had excess inventory, obsolete, and now returns, and using supply chain to warehouse that temporarily in a fulfillment center concept and redeploy the excess material to college campuses. In the exchange of reallocating product from those who don't need it anymore to colleges and universities, they came up with a business model, a platform, if you will, that gives value of that product once it gets to a college campus in the form of college savings, which then become a scholarship.
Okay, so give me some example. Is this specific to a certain material which you pick as excess inventory? Then maybe, right. I don't know, because for example, I'm assuming that universities sell those products or they use it. So explain the real, let's call it information and material flow and also money flow. How does it work? So maybe with the example that would make more sense, right?
So the way to think about the model, so I can answer that in regards to the model itself. Products come into our fulfillment centers and they will come in different categories and conditions. Very, very good reusable product that can go out the door for the extension of its useful life. That can go to a college and a university, because if you really think about a college campus, even in the times of COVID, they're like a small city. They have plumbing system, electrical systems, landscape systems, food services, dormitories. So the products that we accept as a donation really range from small one-off to entire facilities, rooftop HVAC equipment. We think of colleges as a small city. The product that is not in prime condition, because it could be damaged, it could be a missing part, or it may need repair, that goes to our second channel, which is the repair and the resale channel. And then the third channel for the product that is not entirely usable in its second use or can be repaired is recycled. So we recycle from the wooden skids that we receive, the pallets, all the way to the cardboard boxes in which the product arrives, to the plastic ties. So those three channels generate scholarships for students, operating income for the nonprofit. So we are entirely self-sustaining. We do not apply for grants or solicit individual donations of money. That is the model.
No, that is interesting. That makes perfect sense. So in terms of the three streams you mentioned, which is, I think the one you mentioned is the recycle, one is the resale, one is the university actually as a city. So they end up using those products. Could be electrical
exactly
products, could be fan, could be wooden, whatever, right? So which of the stream creates most value?
The scholarships, the first one.
The first one.
The first one. That is the life extension of the product.
Right.
Because in my case, for example, a company that you probably will know, W.W. Granger, was the first donor to our social nonprofit. Yeah. They donated 2 motors. The 2 motors were donated in 1982.
Right.
There was the first donor that came into play, and then we had the first institution, so the first college and university, which happened to be called North Park College. It's here in Chicago. Now they're called North Park University, but I was a student there. The university received the donation of the 2 motors donated by our generous donor, and the university, rather than pay EAL as a nonprofit for the product as in a sale, they received that as a donation in kind.
Right.
And that means that that university just generated a modest savings. In this case, it was a $5,000 savings, which instead of keeping it to buy more products necessarily, they said, we are now going to give a scholarship worth $5,000 to Claudia.
Right.
So they selected me as the first student.
Excellent. So, okay, that's great. So basically the reason universities might be interested in buying your product because they are, for example, if the motor is $10,000, they're probably going to buy from EAL as $5,000, right? So they're saving $5,000. So there's a, that's called commercial interest in approaching EAL, right? But
right.
And the value you have defined of this, let's call it obsolete product, is 5,000, which is way under the value of the market, right?
Yeah.
But then what you can do is the 5,000, rather than giving to you as a cash, they basically give this money to a scholarship which you have received, right?
Correct.
Perfect.
And the interesting part about the model is that the colleges are constantly looking for ways to reduce their operating costs.
Yes.
And they're willing to work with an organization like EAL because we have inspected that product. So it may be scratched or dented, or maybe the box is not perfect. But when you are looking to reduce waste, you open your mind up to thinking of products no longer as waste, but how to create value. And to your question, where do we get the most value? Is the product that can go directly to a college, because that translates into a scholarship. In my case, I received 1 scholarship that changed the course of my life because it enabled me to get a degree in economics. I then applied that degree of economics and getting my very first job. It took me 11 years. I became a US citizen. During the course of the last 25 years, I have been involved in a number of important civic activities, being on board of directors, and being part of the business community because I lived the example of how the model changed my life. And we have done that for almost 19,000 other college students in the last 38 years.
So this point leads to my next question. So can you please tell us about
Right.
the numbers in terms of the fund generated, number of college students
Sure.
you have funded so far, which we understand the value, overall value?
Metrics and measurements and data have always been very important to the model because it's a very unique model, right? We are dealing with product, we are dealing with weight, we are dealing with transportation. The logistics aspect has always been core to what we do. Therefore, we've always been measuring, and the impact that we have had began to be measured first in the social impact, and now we are adding other metrics. So the social impact for us has been a total of about 18,336 students from the very beginning of our organization. We have to report 2020 accomplishments, so that was as of the end of the year. The second metrics is really the value that we have generated for all those students to be able to go to college, and that is about $27 million worth of EAL scholarships that we funded. 10 years ago, we recognized that the ability for the recycling revenue and anything that needed to be repaired or resold could also supplement the inventory scholarships. So we have generated about $4 million in additional scholarships that come in the form of cash. So all told, it's about $30 million in direct impact to colleges and universities. We have an average of about $3,400 in the type of scholarships. The beautiful thing about EAL is that once that scholarship is created, the colleges and universities decide who will be receiving that based on financial need. We don't control that.
So you don't control that part. So that who will get the scholarship is down to the university in the process of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that allows us to remain focused on what we are very good at, which is the conversion of the excess and surplus and scratch and dented industrial inventory, business inventory, and supplies into value for scholarships. Right. Another metric that you may be interested in is the weight. So when we look at how we are now measuring environmental impact, there are a variety: greenhouse gas emissions. We talk about energy waste. At EAL, we think about the actual physical weight of the product. And at any one time, and I was just looking at it before our call, we have processed in the last 24 months about 400 tons of product that has been diverted from going to either landfill or to end up damaging the environment. So really we put through about 400 tons of product through creating value through any of one of these channels. And for folks that are not thinking in terms of, well, what is 400 tons? It's about 3 football fields filled with cars. So if you look at how many cars you can get on a football field, there are a lot of other examples, but some people compare it to how many whales or how many elephants. We think about this is material that we are helping extend the useful life and divert from landfill. So that's the environmental impact. And I think that when it comes to the social impact and the transparency and the governance part of what we do, we manage all of our own transportation. So we have, since the beginning of this year, put a transportation platform that allows donors to give us that responsibility. So a donor says, I have a trailer load of product. We book it through our platform. We either drop a trailer or go and pick up the product, and we bring that into our warehouse. So we are now beginning to track smart transportation as part of the added value toward the environment by using sustainable transportation partners that adhere to EPA guidelines to continue the transparency through the supply chain in what we do.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's very That's very inspiring, actually. I mean, I'm just listening to you, and a lot of ideas are coming into my head, and I'm just thinking, why not many people do it? I mean, there's so much inventory, and I lived in UK 12 years, and I never heard of that concept. Maybe I was not looking fast enough, right? Because what we used to do actually, we used to sell it to those websites, right? Because I have a blog actually on that 12 website where you can sell your obsolete inventory, and they essentially, we sell them like fraction of the price, and they eventually sell it to the, for example, emerging markets as opposed to Africa, Asia, wherever, right? So they do that, and they make money. So why wouldn't we actually do this? Convert that into some money. So tell me, let's talk about operations right now. So in
Yeah.
terms of who approaches who, so do you actively seek excellence of the inventory? So or they come to you, or combination of both. Then what is the logistics operation? Then who pick the inventory?
Yeah.
Comes to a fulfillment center. Who bear the cost of all that? So let's talk about the real making it happen.
Yeah. So the why not? I think that because people are too busy and they think that having a creative solution is going to divert from the operations, when in fact, when you integrate a solution like this, it helps your operations because you put a process in place, and you know that when you generate excess or surplus material, there is an established channel, and that really improves your ability to get your important work done. So people think it's hard, they just never take the time and to understand that it's like anything. Once you establish it, it goes quite smoothly. On the operational side, do they come to us or do we go to them? There are, it works both ways. We are trying to solve pain points for businesses. So there may be a business that has a one-off, a lot of a particular orange cones for managing traffic. A college campus has cars and vehicles, or they may have a product that didn't meet their packaging standards, or maybe the packaging was done in French and they needed it in English. So there are things that lead up to the reason why companies generate excess inventory, and now an onslaught of returns. So they either come to us because they have a problem, or we approach them because we know that our colleges and universities absolutely need support in that area. For example, golf carts and vehicles to move around campus to do inspection. Now we're dealing with colleges and universities preparing for students to return to campus. So how do we keep them safe? What do we do about establishing quarantine centers? Do we need mattresses? Do we need sanitizing materials? So the world of meeting the needs of both the corporations and the colleges is really what brings us together. And what happens is that whether they are coming to us or we go to them, when there is a donor that is interested in supporting what we do by donating their product, it's a very simple. We first approach it from what are your logistics needs? Are you needing a regular pickup? Are you looking at doing a one-off? Where is the product coming from? We use all levels of transportation, intermodal, short haul, back haul. We really establish a logistics first class, first in class kind of operation. The product comes into our facilities and fulfillment centers, and we just sort and assess the quality, and we add value to that product by the process that we have established.
So how many people you have? I mean, how many fulfillment centers?
We have a total of 12 wonderful team members.
Very nice.
And so we have a very, very, very small environmental footprint, considering the millions of dollars of benefit that we generate.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And we have kept it intentionally. For example, 3 or 4 years ago, when we rebranded, we were previously Educational Assistance Limited. And in 2016, we started to recognize the environmental impact and the benefit of what we do. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we had changed our fleet of forklift and hand trucks in the fulfillment centers, all to electronic equipment, to electric and battery operated. We don't heat our warehouses, so in the winter time it's kind of challenging work environment, and therefore that's why we do not accept perishable products as donations, but we have a large network of referrals. So if, for example, the airline industry is looking at surplus food supply that they no longer can serve on an airplane because nobody's flying, they offer that product to us, we will immediately refer them to a local food bank to ensure that that product ends up going to a place, even though EALgreen, it's not interested in handling perishable products.
Right. Okay. So what is your biggest challenge right now, or in terms of growing, or actually in general?
We have a motto: keep growing to keep giving. So we are, like every business, really making an investment in a more robust ERP system. We are very, very fortunate to be working already with Microsoft on our business. Has always been an online business. We didn't have to do a transformation to take our business from a store to online. We have always been a virtual placement marketplace for colleges and universities. First, it was via fax. Before that was via phone, then fax, and e-commerce now. So we've already gone through that journey. The biggest investment that we're now making is integrating our CRM, ERP, and e-commerce. So that's a project that has been going underway this year. We work with lots of software donor companies, Microsoft through TechSoup. So nonprofits really can access a number of tools that are available to for-profit enterprises. And we just learn from the best, from the LinkedIn community and our colleagues, and yourself included, what are best in class, what are the best practices for an organization in the supply chain environment. The second question that you ask is, what are the challenges? And they keep growing to keep giving, as we have demonstrated with the COVID pandemic and the subsequent economic pandemic. The topic that is most discussed is the connectivity of the marketplace. The college and universities are a subgroup that is very important to the economy. And I believe that given the setup that we have in higher education, it's been very, very difficult to know who is opening, who's not opening. Are they opening virtually? Are they coming in to bring the college students on campus? So we have two parts of our business model: the donors that give us the supply, and the demand that gets pulled from colleges. And at the moment, our business has suffered about a 21% decline from the beginning of the year, considering that we never closed one single day. In Illinois, nonprofits were considered essential businesses. The productivity has increased significantly, but the decline is because donors are pulling back until they figure out what is happening with their supply chain. Right. Donors are looking to repair more things. They're a little bit more conservative in getting rid of that product. And those who have it, they need the cash. And so there is a tension right now about doing the right thing versus doing what is good for the bottom line. Yeah, and that tension exists.
But actually, I've asked this question earlier, but you are registered as a charity or a business?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization as a charity.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. So just moving toward my last question, actually. So what does the future look like? What do you see where the EL? I know this whole. I love the motto of keep growing. Keep growing to keep giving. That is fantastic. But you need to think bigger and better, right? So what are the opportunities in the pipeline?
Right. So there are a number of things that I believe are being lifted up by the context of the world. When you think in a broad sense, every business has by now heard of the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals by the United Nations. Every business that is a global player is looking at their supply chain, circularity. So all those other actors in the environment have given organizations like EAL a voice. When we were just advocating for the merits and the benefit of the model that we had, we really were an outlier. But now we're very comfortable in the conversations related to how do we look at the world in which we are looking to reduce waste, or at least keep what we have already manufactured and keep what we have done, living longer and creating value over a long period of time. So what I think it's in the future, we must realize that the systems that we now know, which are the in-person learning, we believe that that is fundamentally going to change. I don't think it's going to be overnight, but the concept of how do we rely on infrastructure to learn and to live is fundamentally beginning to change. There are a lot of examples. So will there always be a need for an orange cone managing foot traffic somewhere? Well, if I had a crystal ball, I will say probably not. However, the key to what we now do is to develop the science to make sure that when that orange cone is done being useful, the science exists to create that orange cone into something else that can be useful.
Wow,
and where does that science come from? It comes from education.
Yes,
It
I think
comes from
that's a
education.
fantastic talk. I think Claudia, you have really inspired me. I think definitely a lot of good ideas. I'm sure I would like to stay in touch with you. Hopefully, we'll talk again on some other topics, and definitely I'll be following you. So thank you very much for your time. So folks, if you have
My pleasure.
if you have any questions, you want to get in touch with Claudia, she's on LinkedIn. Please follow. If you like this conversation, if you like what we are doing in the SCM Dojo and the supply chain show, please like, share, subscribe, as they say. Please leave the comments on the topics you want us to talk about, and I'll be in touch. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Thank you.
Keep it simple, keep it real. Thank you. Bye.
Exactly. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
So if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments below.